after the signing of the instrument today, all of them, with all passports, will now need no visa to come to Kenya. And I am very happy that His Excellency the President has agreed that Angola will equally consider the same when they go back home. And Mr. President, I think it's a very positive process that will enable our people to move with their ideas, with their businesses, so that we can create a greater interaction between our two countries. Your Excellency, I am truly grateful that you considered making this first ever trip by a state visit by a head of state from Angola to Kenya. I want to commit to you and to the people of Angola that in Kenya they have true friends and they have partners to work with for the progress of our two countries and for the progress of our continent. Mr. President, I also acknowledge that we suffer the consequences of climate change. And I want to thank you for sending your deputy for the Africa Climate Summit, which we held in Nairobi between the 4th and the 6th of last month, and that together we're going to formulate a common position as we go to COP28 in Dubai beginning next month to ensure that Africa makes its full contribution at this very crucial stage, especially in managing the effects of climate change that is ravaging our countries. Your Excellency, I am acutely aware that the trade numbers are in favor of Kenya. 96% of that trade is Kenyan goods finding its way to Angola. We will look at avenues that will balance this trade between our two countries, as I encourage business people, entrepreneurs in Kenya to continue working with their Angolan counterparts to enhance, increase, expand avenues of trade, investment and business between our two countries, so that in a very short while we will be reporting billions of trade between our two countries. Your Excellency, let me finish by thanking you once again for making this first visit to Kenya, and I look forward to working with you on many of the continental assignments, as I promise you, Mr. President, that you have Kenya's support as you seek the chairmanship of Africa Union in the year 2025-2026, because I have confidence in your leadership capabilities, and I believe you will bring a wealth of knowledge, understanding, and experience to the leadership of our continent that me and you share in building its ability and capacity to take up its rightful place in the community of nations globally. Mr. President, thank you also for your consideration on Kenya's leadership in the multinational security support mission to Haiti that we will be undertaking on behalf of humanity to stabilize that country whose citizens are Africans like us. Again, Mr. President, thank you very much for your consideration, and welcome again to Kenya. Thank you very much, Your Excellency.
Thank you very much, President William Ruto. Thank you to the delegation present here and the press. I would like to say that we feel ourselves very grateful for the invitation extended to us by President William Ruto to extend this state visit, the first ever of an Angolan head of state to the Republic of Kenya. The ways of our two countries came across in the far year of 1975 when the then President of Kenya, President Jomo Kenyatta, one of the great leaders of Africa at that time, convened here on the Kenyan soil the leaders of the three liberation movements of our country with the aim of trying to unite them so that we could not reach at Independence Day divided. That was a commendable diplomatic effort made by President Jomo Kenyatta, and that effort, unfortunately, and for reasons that have nothing to do with the will of Kenya, ended up being forfeited for other reasons. Anyway, we have to thank that commendable initiative, and from that day, 1975, of that event which I've already mentioned, our destinies became much closer. Nevertheless, the level of our cooperation relations has not grown as one would expect. For all those years, we've been waiting up until we had the opportunity of signing this big number of cooperation instruments of which we are going to do our utmost in order to implement them for the interest of the two peoples and nations. These instruments include virtually all the fields of cooperation that range from agriculture, tourism, environment, and more concretely, wildlife, a sector in which Kenya has a great mastery, and we need to learn from Kenya's experience, mainly because we also have some game parks and we are part of the so-called Okavango Zambezi Transfrontier Conservation Area, which will be the biggest area in our country. And we need to get the experience of those who have mastery in these matters, and amongst them, without a shadow of doubt, we have to single out Kenya. But other fields such as science, ICT, are also of our common interest, not only that of Kenya, but of Angola as well. We have to single out the need for the resumption of the air connection between Nairobi and Luanda, which used to happen in the recent past, but due to COVID-19, that was interrupted and not resumed up until to date. So we committed ourselves during our deliberations today to do our utmost in order to resume that connection, not only the existing one, maybe to expand and have the two air companies to fly from both capitals, from and to both capitals. Trade between African countries is something that needs to be priority for our economies. For us to develop our continent, we need to correct the current situation whereby our exports are exclusively devoted to other continent and forgetting our own African continent. We need to have more trade amongst ourselves. Trade exchanges amongst us have to be increased substantially in terms of volume, and regional integration that is already taking place here amongst the Eastern African countries should be expanded to other sub-regions, and there we can have the bridge between SADC member states and EAC member states that have these kind of trade far well developed. So Angola is now chairing SADC, and in this capacity we are going to make all our efforts in order to connect more in terms of trade exchanges between the two sub-regions. Mr. President, we have taken the commitment of bringing closer our nations, and for such, first we need to bring closer people in general, but notably businessmen. And one of great obstacles has been the visa issue, as Mr. President have rightly put it out. We thank you for Kenya unilaterally has taken a further step in waiving visa, not only on diplomatic passports, but also on ordinary passports, so that Angolan citizens can freely enter the Kenyan territory.